Elena was the daughter of one of the wealthiest family in town. She lived in a grand mansion, attended the most prestigious school, and she had everything she could ever wanted. She was popular, beautiful, and had a group of friends who followed her every move. On the other hand, there was Miriam, a girl from a poor family who lived in a small rundown apartment in the town. She attended the same school as Elena's under scholarship, but her life was a stack of contrasts to that of the wealthy girls. Miriam had to work multiple jobs to support her family, and she often went to school with a torch, clothes, and old books. Despite their differences, Mariam was a bright and determined student. She excelled in her studies and was always on the top of her class. However, this only seems to fuel the jealousy and resentment of Elena and her friends. They would often taunt Miriam, calling her names and making fun of her humble background. Miriam tried to ignore the bullies, but it became harder and harder on her. She felt isolated and alone, with no one to turn to for help. The constant humiliation took a toll on her self-esteem, and she began to doubt her own worth. One day, things came to head when Elena and her friends decided to play a prank on Miriam during a class assembly, and they put money inside Miriam's bag and spread rumor about her stealing, making everyone in the school to laugh at her expense. Miriam was devastated and humiliated, but she refused to let them see her cry. Instead, she stood up and faced her tormentors with dignity and grace. As Miriam walked out of the assembly hall, she was surprised to see a group of students waiting for her. They were not the popular crowd, but a diverse group of students from different backgrounds who had witnessed the bullying and wanted to show their support for Miriam. They offered her a shoulder to lean on, a listening ear, and a friendship that she had never experienced before. Miriam realized that she was not alone, and she also knew that there are people who saw beyond poverty and appreciate her for who she truly was. With their help, she found the strength to stand up the bullies and demand respect for herself. So one day, because Marian do work in Elena's house, so after she finished her chores at Elena's house, she could not help but feel a pang of sadness in her heart. It was her birthday, a day that could have been filled with joy and celebration, but instead she found herself alone and forgotten in the mansion of the wealthy girl home. Tears filled up in Marian's eyes as she made her way back to the mansion, away from the prying eyes of the party's guests. That's when she was approached by a young man who noticed her distress. He asked her what was wrong, and Marian hesitantly shared with him that it was her birthday too, but she could not find any happiness in the midst of her loneliness and despair. The young man's eyes softened with empathy as he listened to Marian's story. Without hesitation, he took her by the hand and led her back to the front of the mansion where Elena's birthday party was in full swing. The guests turned at the unexpected pair, and whisper of confusion and curiosity filled the air. The young man raised his voice and announced to the crowd that it was also Marian's birthday that day. He urged everyone to come forward and wish her well. to show her that she was not alone and she was valued and loved. She became very happy for the unexpected happiness that shows on her face. But on the other way, Elena's reaction was far from what everyone had expected. Anger flashed in her eyes as she saw Mariam being brought into the spotlight, stealing some of the attentions away from her celebration. In a fit of jealousy and rage, Elena stomped towards Mariam and slapped her across the face, the sound echoing through the stormy silence of the room. "Who do you think you are, you pathetic little servant? How dare you try to steal my shine on my special day?" Elena spat out, her voice dripping with xenon. Mariam recoiled from the force of the blow, her cheek straining with pain, but she refused to let Elena's hurtful words and action break her spirit. With tears streaming down her face, she gathered what little dignity she had left and quietly excused herself from the party, her head held high despite the humiliation she had just endured. Elena's guests looked on the shock and disbelief at the same that they had unfolded before them. Some were appalled by Elena's action, while others simply shaded it off as the behavior of someone who was used to getting her way. But the young man who had shown Mariam kindness that day could not stand by and watch her suffer. He followed her out of the mansion, offering her a shoulder to lean on and a listening ear to confide in. And as they walked away from the surrounding of Elena's word, Mariam felt a hope and strength begin to blossom within her, knowing that she was not alone in her struggle and that there was people who saw her words beyond their station of life. So after the birthday, Elena was drunk and she was involved in a road traffic accident because she insisted on driving herself. The news of Elena's accident spread like a wildfire through the town, sending shockwave through the community. Elena's father, Mr. Thompson, was behind himself with worries and guilt, blaming himself for not being there to protect his daughter. He rushed to the hospital, where doctor informed him that Elena needed an urgent blood transfusion to survive. But her blood type was rare and not compatible with his own, and the doctor also did some tests and told Mr. Thompson that he is not the biological father of Elena, that they needed her biological father for the transfusion. In a state of panic and desperation, Mr. Thompson turned to his wife, Mrs. Thompson, accusing her of infidelity and betrayal. He demanded to know if she had been unfaithful to him, leading to Elena's mismatch. Miss Elena, she was still unconscious, and Miss Thompson was stumped and hurt by the accusation of her husband, and she strongly denied any wrongdoing with tears on her eyes and insisted that she had never been with another man beside her husband ever since she got married to her husband, which is Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson not being the biological father of Elena, the revelation sent a shock wave of disbelief and confusion through the Thompson family, leading them grappling with implications of the newfound trust. Mr. Thompson was torn between feeling of betrayal and love for the daughter he had raised as his own. Elena still unconscious and fighting for her life in the hospital. She remained unknown. She remained unaware of the bombshell that had been dropped in her family. Miss Thompson was left shocked from the revelation, struggling to come into terms with the fact that the child she had believed to be her own was not biologically related to her. As the Thompson family grasped with the aftermath of the shocking revelation, Question across about Elena's true parentation and identification. Who were her biological parents? And why has she been raised by the Thompson? And most importantly, how could this revelation impact on Elena's features and the relationship within the family? The truth has scattered the Thompson family perfect life, exposing crash and vulnerability that had long been hidden beneath the surface. As they navigate this new reality and try to make sense of the tangled webs of secrets and lies that had been woven around them, one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again for Elena and the Thompson family. As Miriam heard the news, she quickly rushed to the hospital to know if she can donate for Elena. But she was not matched with hers. She told her father, and Miriam's father, Mr. Leonard, rushed to the hospital to donate his blood for Elena's transfusion. He was met with a mix of emotion, concern for Elena's well-being, confusion over the sudden turn of events, and glimmers of hope that could help save a life in need. The doctor quickly confirmed that his blood type was a match for Elena, and the transfusion was carried out without a delay. As the day passed and Elena's condition slowly began to stabilize, Mr. Thompson could shake the feeling of doubt that moved in the dark of his mind. He could not ignore the uncertain resemblance between Elena and Mr. Leonard, nor the way Mr. Leonard felt and acted in the hospital would be beyond mere love. Driven by the need for answers and closure, Mr. Thompson discreetly approached the doctor and requested for a paternity test to be conducted between Mr. Leonard and Elena in secret. The results were shocking and undeniable. Mr. Leonard was revealed to be Elena's biological father. This revelation is sent a shock wave through the Thompsons and Leonard's family, and the question now is, how is Mr. Leonard Elena's father? After a series of investigations was done, it was confirmed that a healthcare personnel who was to be the supposed wife of Mr. Thompson switched Mr. Thompson's child as a payback for Mr. Thompson for leaving her for another, and that she gave Mr. Thompson's child to Mr. Leonard and Mr. Leonard's child to Mr. Thompson, so that Mr. Thompson's child could suffer hardship. The paternity test was conducted between Mr. Thompson and Mariam, and it was confirmed that Mr. Thompson was the real biological father of Mariam. As the family navigates the complexity of the new reality, old wounds were reopened, a new relationship were forged. Elena always knew as her father was not biologically related to her, while Mariam grapes with the newfound connection shared with people that loved her. As they embark on a journey of self-discovery and reconciliation, the family learned that blood ties were not only the defining factors of family, and that sometimes the trust connection were forged not by biology but by the bond of love and understanding that transcends all boundaries. Thanks for watching.